Welcome to another episode of Never Been Promoted. We're about to go live with an amazing guest. If you can, just take one moment to hit the follow button on your Apple or Spotify. And if you're watching on YouTube, please hit the subscribe button. Let's roll the intro and let's go meet our guest on Never Been Promoted. Welcome to the Never Been Promoted podcast. I'm your host, Thomas Helfrich. We are on a mission to help you cut the tie to everything holding you back so you can unleash your entrepreneur. Welcome to Never Been Promoted. If you're listening, you understand, but we just ran a new intro on the YouTube live stream. I thought it was pretty cool looking. It's kind of fun. So, lucky for our guest, Mr. James Hilovsky, who's a franchise expert, matching you and you're the right business for you. We'll talk about that here shortly. He's the first kind of the new intros. I think we should all just take a drink right now and celebrate that moment. All right, let's get kind of serious. Not really. We are all about helping entrepreneurs cut ties to stuff holding them back, helping them become entrepreneurs, helping them become the best version of themselves in life, but also in entrepreneurship. And our guest today is James Hilovsky. He is the frandream.com. He's tons of experience matching individuals with their dreams of business ownership. And one of the paths you can take in becoming an entrepreneur is buying a franchise. Someone like myself was crazy and did the zero to hero. Let's make up all our own things and processes, spend way too much money and figure it out. Or you could buy a playbook and a support system and just go do that on a proven business model. I'm going to tell you, it would have been a lot easier to do the franchise route. Just lay it out there. So James will be on here just shortly. In the meantime, listen, I've said in the intro, one call to action. Take a moment, follow on Spotify, Apple, and if you like the YouTube, just hit the subscribe button. We do tons of live shows, lots of great content, and it helps the channel and the community get their voices heard. So let's bring James on here shortly. There he is, James.
There we go.
I figured out technology. It's not a we thing. I was having technical challenges to start off this day. And I've gotten through it. We've powered through it. Together we did it. Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
All right, James.
Thank you so much for having me.
Of course. No, you're in the franchise game, and you have a moment you realize you wanted to do that. But maybe just take a moment here and just do a brief introduction who you are and kind of what your company, the Fran Dream, right? What you guys do.
Yeah. So what the Fran Dream does, we match people. We show people what are out there, business professionals and athletes that are there. We show you what's out in the franchise world, what options you have, because there's over about 7,000 franchises you could look at. I kind of help narrow that down for you. Listen to, what your goals are. If you're owner operator, passive model, find the best model that might fit for you. Show you maybe 5 to 10 different options, then introduce you to the franchisor, and then stay with you during the whole time to help you make that decision during that process.
So you're a guide, a coach, consultant, advisor. Broker's probably a little bit, I don't like the term because you make money, but you make it from the franchise. It doesn't cost the person working with you anything to work with you. They only get knowledge and process and someone in the corner to say, what does this mean? How do I take that, to facilitate? That's fair, a way to describe it.
100%. I couldn't have said it better myself.
You know what? This one is over. I'm just going to take the rest of it from here.
Right, exactly.
It's interesting. I talked about this in the intro. Becoming an entrepreneur, own your own business is the American dream. I think the American dream is dead as it was presented to us of let's work for a company, let's save for retirement, let's have these merry years. The more men, I'm almost 50 now, that I see, the 15 years ahead of me who've retired. A lot of times they don't make it past a couple of years because their mind shuts down. I want to be work optional. I think one of the ideas of building with a franchise is it could be a second career. You're building wealth as opposed to trading your time for money, and it's a hell of a lot easier than doing it the way that I did it, which is like, let's create our own brands and figure out our own sales models. Do you want to just give me the, for anybody who's not, who's maybe it's like, what's a franchise? What do they mean by that? Do you want to do the definition of kind of what a franchise is and what it isn't, and maybe the high levels of benefits from it? And you just set it up for us a little bit so those who don't know.
Absolutely. When you think of franchise, I think a lot of people think, well, it's just all restaurants. It's McDonald's. I saw the movie, so it's all restaurants. Well, the franchise is a model, a business model where they've made the mistakes already. They have processes in place. They have systems in place. They have a nice playbook. They hand that playbook off to you to where you can take that playbook, follow it, and be successful. So when we talk about different franchising, like I was saying earlier, a lot of people just think, oh, it's just restaurants. Now, if you're driving across the street, down the street, and you see a truck that's a plumber, maybe a HVAC truck that's out there, that's probably a franchise. Franchising is in every industry and any field or trade. It can be a franchise. There's franchises that if you're not like a certified plumber, don't have a general contractor's license, you can get into a franchise to be an HVAC company, because you're going to be running the company and they'll help you hire the technicians that can run the business for you. So a franchise is really that helping hand. But also when you think of franchises, you do think the company's going to help me, but also you have to understand that all the franchisees in the franchise system, they're now going to become your teammates because they want you to succeed. So you can go to them for help as well, not only the franchisor. So in the franchise world, there's tons of advantages to going with a franchise.
Well, you make a good point, right? The other owners who have their own defined territories, who are not going to infringe on your world, want you to succeed because the raising of all tides of the brand helps them. And they also will learn from what's working from you. They'll also share what doesn't work or does for them. That support community by itself is something you don't get when you go do it by yourself. You're guessing a lot. What you're describing isn't a guess. It's an educated decision based on data of others. When you can, and honestly, with AI, you could create models and ask it to say, why does that work in this city and not this one? And it can come up with ideas and hypotheses. So there's probably a lot of ways to look at the data behind a franchise. Why? But anyway, getting in the weeds a bit. But the support is there. When you work, so I think understand how the franchise consultant or advisor works. You are part of a group. There are a few out there. Which group again are you part of?
The FBA, Franchise Brokers Association.
So the reason that's important for them listening is because they have a portfolio of companies they've vetted. Ones that they are legit, they follow the regulations. There's a bunch of steps you need to go through when you become to buy a franchise. There's a bunch of steps that the franchise consultant needs to take you through and sign offs, and the people selling them have to follow. So if you're trying to buy a franchise and they don't have a very defined system, I think it's a red flag. Fair enough?
Fair enough. Yep, absolutely.
Right. I've seen a few. They're trying, but they're like, "Where's your FDD?" And so the point is, can you walk us through high level though the system? Because when you have a franchise consultant as part of a bigger group, you have to be accepted into that group, and then you have access to a portfolio of stuff. So walk through maybe someone who's looking for a franchise, what the system or the steps should be you should be following, and if you're not, you should ask a red flag. So will you take that one so people are aware of what they should be doing?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, definitely when you're in the group, you have access. So those franchises, anything in my system has been vetted. We can go out that system, but I will have to do some research and vet that franchise as well. But the whole process should be, I show you different options that are out there, the process would be, hey, James, hey, I really love this particular franchise. Then it's like, okay, let me introduce you to the franchisor. They're going to reach out to you. So then what the franchisor should do, they'll give you an introduction call, give you a deeper dive. We're just doing the airplane flyover. They're going to give you a deeper dive of, hey, here's our system, here's our marketing, here's how we're going to support you. Then they should send you an FDD, which is a franchise disclosure document. In that document, it tells you what the costs are going to be, what the fees are going to be, how they're going to support you. So having that document is very important to review, and you need to sign for that because you need to have 14 days to review that document before you can sign anything. So it's not like you can go in and put pen to the paper. You have to have 14 days to review that. Then what you should be doing is having other meetings, meeting different people, maybe the head of marketing, just taking more of a deeper dive. And the main thing that I can tell you is that you should go in, when you get that FDD, you'll have franchisees that you can connect with that are in the system. And that's the most important thing, because you want to call them and ask, hey, would you do this again? When did you get your money back on this? What kind of support do you get? What is the support? To me, the most important thing on a franchise is the support, because they could tell you all you want about how much you can make, but it's the support you're getting from your business partner, because business is business. The franchisor is not going to run your business. They're going to give you the playbook. To be successful in the business, it's more about your what you're putting into it, the people you're putting into place, and you're running the business. So that the making the money and that's still up to you, but you want to have the franchisor that's going to give you the best support to do that.
And I know there's a few more steps to come after this, but I wanted to we'll continue this here after you've done your discovery period during the first 2 weeks to get stuff signed. You're learning, do you recommend meeting with like a super successful one and one that's struggling?
Yeah, I would say super successful, one that's struggling, and then also I would do one that's fairly close to you, and or something that's like a demographic, but don't ever tell them you're looking at buying right by them, because they might go, ooh, maybe I should buy that territory. So I've been thinking about doing it, so let me do it now. So yeah,
that's a good point. If there's someone who's already bought a franchise and they're near you, and you say, hey, I'm like 8 miles from you and I'm thinking about buying one, they will approve the other person first.
100%, yes.
They're already vetted and they already own one, and they have a small incremental franchise fee to go grab that territory. So be strategic, people. But you have to ask also the question, why hasn't that person bought that territory anyway? So there's things there. And I'll give you an example, by the way, just pointing this. We were looking at a franchise, and I started with the least successful person who's been doing it for 18 months. And the guy had a similar profile to me in a different market completely, but he was busy. He was like, this is something that, you can't say you're going to be absentee. That's not allowed, right? You can be semi-absentee or semi-passive. And I'm okay putting time in to build a franchise, but I do need it to be kind of running itself because I have other things. He's like, that was my idea. He's like, what I found was, unless you're really out there selling, marketing, day to day, trying to get these old boys clubs, trying to get all the stuff you need to do, you're going to best break even. He's like, because I cannot commit enough time to it, because ads don't do enough, right? You need to be commercial. You don't, like in this case, it was like we had the wrong size things for the commercial. The point being is it was a reality check of what I thought I could do versus you're like, yeah, but when you get into it, your customer acquisition is too high. It's not repeat, so it's hard to predict it. And it's like, and so we backed out because I'm like, all right, I won't have time to commit to it. So where I'm going with that is I found that in discovery. I think we about dodged somewhat of a bullet on that. And we slowed our roll. But what I found was for one of us, my wife and I, to do this, someone's got to be 100% in. What is your take? At least one person has to be 100% in on this. Would you agree with that statement?
I would say typically, yes, one person's got to be.
At least to start, at least to get it going where it's to get it off the ground and established in the black kind of business.
Yeah, I would say to roll it up, one person probably has to be able to be in it 100% of the time. Absolutely. And then you could kind of back off. Or if you have a really great team already in place and you really trust that manager could get it off the ground for you. But that is really probably someone that you know and you vetted already before, not someone that you're taking a chance on and hiring. I probably
Yeah.
wouldn't put that much pressure on them.
Right. Well, and I think the point of that is when you go down this path and you're doing discovery, I think it's one of the questions you need to ask also is not, how much time do you really put into this? And what you discover is, are they working smarter and following a playbook? Are they working everything? You think, man, they really think they're following it. They're putting 80 hours a week in and it's still not working. To me, it might be a red flag. I can only put 20 in. We're not doing that great with it. Okay, maybe, so you can start assessing qualitative data. I'd say it that way. And with the quantitative piece. So that's subjective versus hard fact, and be like, all right, well, I did this. I think I can make it work. So I think that's an important piece. All right, you've done discovery day. You've signed the FDD. What happens next?
Done discovery. So then, actually, you've had your introduction call. You've done the FDD. You're taking a deeper dive into the different departments that the franchise has. You've called your franchisee. You've done validations. What's called validation. You're very excited with validation. Then you go to a discovery day, which could be done virtually, could be done in person. I would always recommend going to see a site or a territory that's out there. I would say go visit a location that's going. And then in that discovery day process would be you're meeting everybody. Okay, we approve you, you approve me, because at the end of the day, the franchise has to award you a franchise. They can say no. And I've had it happen to a couple clients where they go, you know what, it's just not a fit. So we're not going to offer them a franchise. So always make sure that you are looking at buying a franchise much like a job interview of, hey, I want to impress them because they're looking to become partners with you. And the worst thing for a franchisor to do is have a bad franchisee. So it is, it's a double-edged street that we're looking for the best possible fit on both sides.
Oh, right. You don't want a local franchisee to get sued, make national news, which hurts everybody. Like that would be bad. Okay, so you take through that, and then there's discovery, and the franchisor. There's a finance component too. That's done after. Is it done in parallel?
It's kind of done in parallel, like during signing, because once you've done that discovery day and you both say, okay, let's come up to agreement, then I like to say, then it is time to maybe negotiate something on your behalf of, hey, let's do no franchise fees for 6 months, the royalties. How about that?
I thought that stuff was set in stone. Every franchise has to do it exactly the same. Is that not true?
That's not true. You can negotiate some of the things that are out there.
Like you could do, hey, can we pay it over time so we get better cash flow? Is this kind of thing?
It could be, yes. Yeah, it could be paid over time, get better cash flow. I would always say, hey, can I have no royalties for the first 6 months? And
six months of revenue. You're not going to shift.
So you're like that. I mean, and I tell my candidates, the worst they can say is no.
Well, but that's interesting. I thought for sure you couldn't. I'm learning something here. So everyone listening up here, you have things I know you can negotiate territory size. That's one thing.
Yeah.
Because so it's either by square miles or people or some version of that. Is that correct? It's like, or the whole city. You can negotiate multiple territories with delayed franchise payments. I've told though you can't do that, but I guess you can, or it's just not. Tell me about that a bit, because you buy multiple territories. That's really where you start scaling.
Yeah. So the franchise fee typically is a one-time fee paid to the franchisor at time of signing. That's typically right now on average about $50,000. So that is paid to secure your territory when you sign. Now, if you say, hey, I want to have 2 or 3 territories, then you're going to negotiate that franchise fee. The one franchise fee, that's $50,000. You typically cannot move off that at all. But if you go, hey, if I buy 2 territories, can I get all in for a franchise fee of $80,000? And they might go, yeah, because you got to prepay that. Then they'll go, well, it's got to be at least 90. So you can negotiate once you get into multiple.
They want that revenue in which guarantees they don't have the cost of sales for the next territory. It's done.
Correct.
There's real
Yeah.
math behind it. And
Yeah.
and from the consultancy, are you paid on how many territories they buy, or just that they bought anything?
Just so they buy any, and it kind of varies. Some say, hey, if you do a multiple deal, you get a little bit more. So it kind of varies on the franchise on that regard. I would say if you're into a franchise system and you're buying one territory and you have the means to buy the second one and think at some point you would expand, I would probably really recommend looking at doing that, because you get that discounted franchise fee typically, and then you also have protected, a surrounding area, and then you also could negotiate, like if it's a brick and mortar business, like maybe it's dog grooming, then you could go, okay, that second territory that I have, that second unit, I want to have about 18 months to build that out. So in 18 months, I'll have that one open. So negotiate timeline on when that second territory or unit will be open.
I love it. I didn't know that. And like I said, the worst they can say is no. What's your kind of take? Okay, so I'm gonna get to that because we're gonna come back to the types of franchise here. So you go through that, you secure financing. The financing world is tricky. You can do it with cash. You could do an SBA loan and pay through your nose and testicles and or ovaries to do that. Sorry, interest rates are high, so it's like you look at it, you're like, ooh, that's a credit card. Or there's a thing called ROBS. So this is where you can use a 401k to potentially fund your franchise. Can you maybe do a 1, 2, 3 on what those are, and end with your explanation of how, because I think a lot of people don't realize they can use a 401k to fund it through a thing. So would you once again take that one since you're the expert?
Yeah. So, well, one is, so a lot of, typically you could do it, just pay it for cash on hand. Some people do liquidate stocks or sell some real estate investment just to pay it all off in full. The other thing that you can do is, like you said, a 401k loan. You need about 20% down. If it's a $200,000 investment, you're looking at about 40K that they want to see down in a business account. And then the 401k rollover is a really good one, but you can use your 401k funds that you could take out a loan on and roll that into. So that is a very popular one as well. And what I typically do on that, I typically send my candidates to a lender that walks them and takes them a deeper dive on how to do that. The other thing that we haven't spoken about that you can do as well is sometimes you can do a HELOC on your home, where you just take equity out of your home to do it as well.
That's fantastic. So the HELOC, is another example of if you're working somewhere and you have W-2 income, to establish the HELOC while you still have income to do it. Because once you leave, you won't be able to get a HELOC, just to be clear. Get your finances and things like that in order ahead of time. Using your 401k requires you to set up an LLC, and you do this. I think it would be probably a tax. I think it's an attorney. Who's the right person to contact to work through how to do that correctly?
It would just be any SBA lender can help you facilitate that, because they help you. Yeah, with the ROBS, they help you with the LLC. They help you form all of that and get that flowing. That when you're talking on your 401k rollover, to get access to those funds, probably typically 30 days or less. It's pretty quick process. SBA loan, 2 to 3 months. So,
well, that was a question I was going to have for you too. So let's say the reason you would use your 401k is it makes whatever 7 to 10% in the market. Your idea behind it is you come in with cash, and then you have the ability to turn a company into a cash flow machine faster by not having an SBA loan that could potentially be several tens of thousands even to pay back, depends on the size of your loan. But it doesn't mean you can't do both. It doesn't mean you couldn't take cash from one thing, do a smaller SBA loan to give you additional operating cash, because that's the one thing that will kill a franchise faster, any business faster than anything else, is zero cash.
Exactly. Yes.
Actually, on that note, does the franchise that you're trying to buy typically say, listen, you really need a minimum of this cash reserves, recommended this?
Yes,
Do they
and
deal
that is in the deep dive of, hey, in that FDD, you will get what's called an item 7 of here's the money you're going to need, and some of it is a big gap, like it's 200,000 to 280,000. But in the FDD, the item 7, it breaks down all the items of kind of where that would go, where you might need extra money because it's going to cost more to build out in California than maybe Missouri. So you're going to have some fluctuation there. But yeah, definitely is that's a talking point because, like you said, the last thing the franchisor wants is undercapitalized franchisee. So they want to make sure that you have the funds and you're going to be able to sustain yourself. Typically, in that FDD on that item 7, a lot of times included is 6 months runway of cash.
Yeah. And I was thinking like too, like, do the franchisors ever, you're getting through it, you're set up, you're 5 minutes, and you're like, listen, I'm like 3 months short. Well, the franchisor, yeah, say the right term there. Well, they sometimes say, hey, listen, we'll do the loan on you, but we'll collect revenue back until we get paid off.
Typically not. No, they typically won't do that. They typically want to make sure that you're able to be able to fund this and be that on your own. The only time really some franchisors, they will run a special where they'll say, hey, our typical franchise fee is $50,000. What we're going to do for this limited time, we're going to knock 40% off our franchise fee. So, and then what we're going to do to make it a little bit easier to get into this is we're going to defer that cost of, let's say now let's just say 20,000, make it simple math, $20,000. So we're going to give you 2 years to pay off that franchise fee, and we're going to do it at interest fee. So it's basically $1,000 a month that you're paying for the franchise fee. So you don't have that big $50,000 hit. So sometimes they will do that.
Operating capital. That's great.
Yeah.
All right, so you get through that financing, it's all secure. Then you're obviously you usually have just like an in-person day or something with the owners, and you're signing at that point, right? Like, we're doing this.
Yes, absolutely. We're signing. We're going to do this. They've approved us. We've approved him. We've negotiated everything. We're signing, and then it's okay. Who's going to training?
Yeah, well, training. So training comes next. Usually, it's part of your business model. You're gonna have to pay for that. You do it, and you get all your hardware, and you get site look, whatever it is. You just trucks. It depends what you're buying. You're now in the training, and now you're running your business. So let's talk a little bit about types of different. There's services. There's brick and mortar. Go through the options. Let's just like high level, and I'd like to get your take on a couple of things.
Yeah, definitely. There's a brick and mortar, which is when you have a lease and you have a office space. So it could be a brick and mortar where it could be a retail brick and mortar. It could be brick and mortar of an office space to where have the staff has to meet up. Like maybe you are in a house cleaning business. You need a small office where everyone can meet, grab supplies, and go out. So there's brick and mortar. There's options to where it could be from home, where you maybe where most of the business is conducted from your home office. That could be done to where maybe it's a window washing company and you have a couple trucks that your employees have, but that could be a home-based business that's ran and have your territory. And then there also are some franchises where you can be home-based and that's where you're running everything. That you're basically maybe just making calls and doing things for your business. Like an example of that would be a business judgment business, to where a court's awarded a claim and there's someone a judgment of $10,000 and someone has to grab that. So your business would be to go get that $10,000, get a percentage of that for your clients, and that could be done from home, and that's all you need is just a computer and yourself.
Is that like a collection business, basically?
Basically, it is a quote unquote collection business, but it's court is awarded a judgment, and then you're there behind the scenes helping that client collect that, but you're not the one that's repoing assets or
You're gonna have to rock up there and be repo man and pull Porsche away.
you're not being repo man. You're doing it all from you're making directions on what assets to seize all from your own. It's a pretty interesting franchise, really, and that could be done for clients throughout the U.S.
I feel like that one could end in you getting murdered. You start working on that one from home. Because like, oh, we're gonna come take little Johnny's toys. You guys very much so familiarize with the Fair Debt Collection Act before you take that one on. See, you yourself don't get sued for doing it wrong. Anyway, what's your take on Chick-fil-A?
Well, Chick-fil-A is, I mean, my background was in the restaurant business, so
Actually, I should premise that you have the reason I'm asking is I know a little bit about Chick-fil-A and its model, and I know you're a restaurant guy. I should have set that up. He has lots of experience in the restaurant business. Just if you'd like to share what your background was, please, before you expect other people to context.
Sure. So I have a lot of experience in the restaurant business. I was in corporate America in the restaurant side for 20 plus years. And then I went from that to a company that was just starting out. And I built that from 1 to 100 of supporting their franchise side. Then the largest franchisee said, "Hey, partner up with me," and that's so I was a franchisee with them, and we had our restaurants. Then we did an ice cream franchise, and we did our own cookie dough franchise and our own coffee shop. So a lot of experience in the restaurant world. And one thing, when I get a client that doesn't have any restaurant experience, they'll go, "How about the restaurants?" And I say, "Well, it's the highest failure rate. And it's the most expensive you can possibly get to, most restaurants are going to be at least $700K to $1 million. And it's going to be probably a long game that you're going to get your money back. So it's going to be a little bit longer game. And I've been in this all my life, and I had sites, because it's going to come down to site selection. I had sites that I thought was going to be $2 million plus site, and it didn't do that. And I've had sites that I said, "Hey, the rent's great. We're going to make a little bit of money off that." It was one of our busiest restaurants. So it is a very tough business, and labor costs keep going up and margins keep shrinking, but that's for another day and all that. But,
But when you get a Chick-fil-A, it's well, I'm not gonna give my opinion on it, but like, what is your take on that as a friend, like just as a franchise?
Well, I really wouldn't call it a franchise. I would call it,
if you can call it that. I'm leading the witness. We didn't, by the way, everyone listening, we did not have this conversation ahead of time. It's gonna be very obvious why I said it's not really a franchise, but please go ahead.
Absolutely. It is a program that is very tough to get into. So you have to prove yourself as a manager, entrepreneur, and then you are invited to be like they probably call it an owner, right? Owner operator, to where you now share on the profit. So if you could get into it, it's a very good model, but just know that you're going to be, it's your job, and you're going to be married to that business. And, you don't have anything to sell. You don't have an asset. When you're done with it. So it's very tough to get into, could be lucrative, but you're going to be, slinging chicken for, you're going to be in the trenches every day.
So that's the point I wanted to point out. So there are businesses out there that are jobs. You're buying a job. In particular, that one, it is incredibly hard to get to. It looks like you'd make a fortune. The truth is, I think the top guys make maybe $250,000, $500,000 a year. You bought a job that you need to be at on site, I believe, at least 5 days, maybe not 6 days a week. And you basically have to get permission to take vacation from your own business. So if you want a job that you're in the community, and I would say that. I don't know if Ace Hardwares are kind of the same way, but I think there's a lot of businesses out there that you buy that look great, but you're in it. You're not on it. You're not working on that business ever. You are in it, executing, and you don't even own it. So you can be replaced, and you will be when you die. And go to see heaven, Jesus, because that's what Chick-fil-A is all about. So don't buy a Chick-fil-A. If you want to buy a Chick-fil-A, don't buy a Chick-fil-A.
Right, exactly. There you go.
Don't rent it.
Exactly. 100% agree with you. Totally.
So what do you like? I know, okay, listen, so franchise consultants can't give you their opinions on revenue, what it could do, what it should do. You read, say Section 7 FDD, check it out. You can't provide a pro forma, which is an Excel sheet that does a predictive model. You certainly can ask franchise owners for them. I would do that. Um, but what can you do to help steer somebody from, let's say, services versus brick and mortar? What are the factors of those type of companies, and maybe who gets into it, maybe through investment of capital available, personality? Can you take that of where you direct people through to get them lined up so they can be successful?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I can tell you basically what an average unit does if the franchisor has published that, and or if it's on marketing materials. I will tell you this, and I will give you, my opinion on that for sure. So, but yeah, definitely, when you're looking at franchise and you go, your questions, brick and mortar versus non-brick and mortar and all that. Well, it all really depends. Before you can really even answer that question, is what are you looking for in the business? Are you looking to keep your job and have a semi-absentee, which I would tell you, you're going to be at least 20 hours into this, and you're going to have a really good manager. But at first, I would recommend doing it full time. Or are you looking to be owner operator, where you're going to be working, on and in your business? So that's kind of a big factor too. And then, what are your goals? I have a NFL football player that's a client. He's getting towards the end of his career, and he's like, I'd like to make about $500,000, in the profit in my franchise. So the goal really for him was, we found a model that he loves. It's a gym, which is great. And we're like, okay, to make this, I think we're looking that we're going to have to do multi-unit, that we're going to have to do that to get you to where you want to be. So we're looking at probably doing 3 gyms. Okay, perfect. That's what the road that we're thinking. Another client he was in corporate America. He was looking at dog grooming and he was like, I want to have generational wealth. I want to have, maybe 3, 5 and build up from there. But I want to start with 3. And I'm going to have my wife and daughter are going to run the first one. And then I would say, once I get the second one open, I'm going to transition from my job into the business. So it's different ways and strategy that you come up with of what are you looking to get out of the business. So that is really the main thing of coming up.
Well, if you only have a balance sheet, or your couples just say sharing about doing 250,000 or 300, whatever it is, and you don't have a balance sheet that can do $1 million, you're not going to be eligible for some things, and nor should you try to go push that. Probably you're adding a lot of risk. You can do it, but it's your job to say that's really pushing the balance sheet, guys. Like, this one's good, and it doesn't mean, by the way, if you buy something that's 200,000, means it's going to be any more profitable money than the $2 million one. Like, for example, you could buy essential services plumbing, as you described. That shit's always needed.
Exactly.
You always need plumbing. Like, unless you're a little handy guy like me, but there's parts of plumbing in mine. I am not sure why that vacuum has just happened in my toilet. I have no idea how to fix that. Guess who's coming out? Plumber. He's gonna figure it out because he knows how to do that. He knows how to use a clean out correctly to figure out shit like this.
He sure does.
Anyway, the point is, your investment amount matters. Also, your personality, right? So if you can't on your Facebook say, I own a Johnny on the spot franchise, I pick up shit for my living. Well, you can custom. I didn't tell you that. You're probably not going to fit that. It's not going to work as well. I love my Pilates studio. I'm so proud that I have this beautiful thing. Can you talk about that kind of maybe psychological, it related to success of the franchise, or if it's important at all? Maybe I'm just wrong, off on that. But does it matter? And does it come into factor?
I definitely think it does matter, because you want to do something that you enjoy, but fits your personality too. Like you're saying, you got to be able to promote. Especially if it's a business, you got to promote it. You've got to be able to talk about it and promote it. So you have to have a certain type of personality for that. But I will caution and say, I always kind of tell the candidate this, we're going to look at options that you are very interested in. And that's what I want to provide for you. And I will find something in that area that I think not only fits your personality, fits your interests, but I also want you to be open-minded and maybe look at this thing over here that maybe you've never thought about opening up dog grooming, but the margins are 30 to 40% on this. Let's think about that. So I definitely want to give options, but I also say, the last thing I want you to do, I know you have a particular interest in this area. The last thing I want you to do is have a hobby. You're in to get a business. I want you to have a business that's going to have really strong margins. So I would say there's about 400, maybe 500 franchises in my inventory. There's some that I don't even ever consider showing because I don't feel they have a strong enough margin for their investment level to even show a candidate. I don't care what their interest is. At the end of the day, if they still say, yes, that's what I want, okay, well, I'll go down that rabbit hole with you. But I don't want you in a hobby. I want you in a business, something that's going to achieve your goals that you've set out to do.
I like that. And my wife and I are interested in how do you handle this scenario? And I mean, I'm asking for a friend, where one person is the crazy entrepreneur that talks about entrepreneurship and loves the business model and has been very thankful his wife's had a steady W-2 jump to pay for things while he built it. Not saying who the friend is, but he's a pretty cool guy with a nice tie. Then you have a wife who's sick of possibly reporting to people and working for people, but is really having a tough time risking money and the security that a W-2 does and the risk involved with it. When you see this kind of dilemma that one wants to or it just can't get over the risk comp, do you influence that at all, or how do you help that couple?
Well, I would say through my experience, when you ask any entrepreneur who has left a corporate job, when you ask them, would you do it again, or would there be a regret? I would say the majority of them would say, I wish I would have done this sooner. And
to become a franchise owner.
To become, I wish I would have done this sooner and left corporate America, because, I left right at the time where, they were cutting staff and I just knew I was going to be the next one. Like you said at the top of the show, the job is, that is that no longer do you work for a company, you have a pension, you had a great 40-year career. That's just not out there. I think the reality of it, and what I will tell people in that position, if you've been in your job 20 years, if you're getting up there in age, I would say there's no loyalty in business anymore. That business will turn their back on you in a New York minute and replace you with someone once you've hit that threshold of salary. They're going to want to cut some costs. I guarantee you they'll figure out a way to eliminate your position, or find a way that that you're going to be let go. And I would also say the other thing is, you've bet and made a company a lot of money. It's time to bet on yourself. Do I have a guarantee that you're going to make it? I don't have a guarantee of that, no. But I do know if you're hardworking, you're going to put effort into it. You have a great franchise. We find you a fit, and we find you a franchise that gives you super strong support. You have a lot going for you, probably more than, yes, it's going to take a while to get used to not having that, paycheck every 2 weeks. But at some point in your job, I will also ask you this: you're capped. You're capped at what you can make. In business, it's unlimited. It's unlimited. If you're looking at buying a new car, in business, you could go, okay, if this is a good month, that's a good month, then we'll pay cash for that car. If you're in running paycheck to paycheck and having a paycheck, you're going, yeah, we're going to take a loan out and get that car, and I'm going to scrimp to get the down payment for the car.
Yeah. And I think part of what you do when you fund your own company, though, too, you build in how to pay yourself during that time. That's part of the
100%.
operation.
Yeah.
So yes, you're borrowing money from yourself to pay yourself. Are you like triple taxing that once you do that? I don't even know. Probably not. Actually, if you're using a 401k that was deferred, you probably are just paying regular income tax on it at this point. Anyway, you can ease it, but no one's getting into it to just be broke and be even, right? You're into it to go. Like I explain that to a lot of people. Like if you're making $120,000 a year, Most of the franchises you're going to try to buy should net you at least 10K a month when it's up and going, at least. The one location. The difference is now you can go to a second location and another location potentially, or do a different franchise altogether. So I think the point is the risk piece that I think a lot of people have a tough time getting around are the first 18 months.
Yeah.
It's getting it up and going. It's the work, because it's an unknown. It's a dark room that you've never entered. You're being asked to walk across it and go find the door. The difference is you have someone with a light, a guide that says, look out for that couch. You're going to trip your foot here. We're going to turn the lights on for you. And I think that's an important piece for the risk to get past it. There are people though who fail, and there are ones that don't. Is it the person who has bought it and their work ethic? Is it the franchise? What usually is the reasons you see people don't do well, or really it doesn't work at all and it becomes a giant loss? Or is it just food industry?
Typically, the franchisees that I've seen that do fail, the majority are not following the system, just want to complain about the way the franchise is running things, and one that they are completely hands off when they needed to be hands on. They're not paying any attention to the business, or they are nickel and diming the business when they should be, putting money in to support it, but they just don't have that. They just have the short sight of, I can't do this. I can't market like this. I can't afford to market. And, that's all short-sightedness of, you really need to put money into, make some money. So you need to invest in your business and keep investing in your business. And other times too that I've seen where people fail is that they fail and they are just going down on the ship, and they're not asking for help, either the franchisees or the franchisor. So it is a combination of factors of why you fail. And then sometimes it's just the business was just not going to work in this area. But it's typically more of, there's many things you can do to get yourself out of that rut.
And let me pivot gears a little bit. So I had this conversation with my wife the other day, and the business I'm picking is not for any other reason just than it was a relative example. So here it is. Pilates studio. My wife had gone to it for a long time, 2.5 some years, paid her money, used it. And I look at it, I go, why do I need a franchise for that? And explaining, it's like I can look at any of the 1, 2, 3, 4 studios. They have X amount of reformers and so much square footage. That's an easy calculation. They have some kind of vibe, look, serene, peaceful, intense, whatever. Some have software, some don't. But you need a scheduler, you need a way to collect payments, and probably a way to market to them at the bare minimum. So you go high level, probably can solve all 3 of those, to be fair, as also. They have little side things, cooler, socks, nice bathrooms. So they have a build out, they have a space. It doesn't actually have to be super located, just needs to be generally in an area that feels safe, enough parking. Some of the areas actually have terrible parking, to be fair. Why do I need a franchise in that?
Well, that's a kind of sometimes a common question. And I would say, okay, it does look easy. You're going to see some hiccups there, and you're going to go down some rabbit holes that you probably didn't even think of, where in a franchise, you're going to have that support. So remember, a franchise is not only giving you that beginning support of that training, they're going to give you ongoing support. And the moment anything happens, you're going to raise your hand, and they're going to be able to come out and help fix that. Also, you have that network of franchisees. We talked about teamwork of going to go, yeah, do this, do that. Oh, cut your costs this way. Oh, I use this. Or if you're in a franchise system, you're getting better pricing and cut rates for vendors because they buy in bulk, especially in HVAC. Your HVAC costs are a lot less being in a franchise than out on your own. So there's a lot of different things, as well as when you talk about marketing, you have your marketing department's already done. They already have designed the marketing. They have several marketing programs that you have at your leisure of depending on what marketing plan do they want to run. they'll come up with that for you. They'll come up with a business plan with your business coach of hey, I want to do this in this quarter, and they help you achieve those goals. So I would say some people might have that entrepreneur spirit that say, I could do it myself. I don't need those royalties. And, more power to it. I did it both ways. We did our own coffee shop. Like I told you, we did our own cookie dough franchise. Should we have done a franchise? I would say in them, I wish we would have done a franchise instead of done it on our own. It just would have been much more successful, because it's harder to break into something when you're not a franchise and you're mom and pop. You're looked on now as, oh, that's a mom and pop. And not saying a mom and pop can't become big, but it is very hard to crack that nut of I'm just a mom and pop.
Right. Also, your kids are going to benefit when they're like, why don't we franchise this?
Right. Exactly.
So, which is fine. I mean, there's just a lot of factors. And I think that the point is, as somebody who's built their own brand and taken it, I could look at the marketing and be like, I can run ads. I think I can figure out that. There's a lot you don't know that you run into. And yes, you're going to overprice, pay for something, but you might save on others. I think I could get build out done cheaper, but the truth is the corporate place does it anyway. They have their firms, you build it to your lease. And anyway, but you have a lot of unknown costs of like, well, do you have your architectural plans? Do you have this? How do you do permitting? Like you there's a lot of stuff in the setup that franchise fee will get you to revenue faster and also help you support later with here's some new updated marketing techniques, keywords that seem to be like, I think the marketing plan of a franchise is probably one of those valuable playbooks you can get. And I think one of the things I think people need to look for, and I know that I have this marketing kind of background, but someone needs to be attentive to it at the franchise corporate level. Because the same one that worked 5 years ago won't work now.
100%.
It won't, because you like, hey, you need content, you need these kind of pictures. There's a whole different play than just straight ads. And by the way, oh yeah, this. Anyway, so I think that's a big piece too, as people look into this. Just conscious of time too. I know we're over just a little bit here. Who should get a hold of you? By the way, thank you so much. I think anybody who's listening to this should have a really good perspective of franchising. Also, that you should be a guy that they may want to reach out to do this. How do they do that? Who should do that?
Yeah, I'd say anybody who's interested in looking at the business world and starting a business. Let's just have a talk. And it's just like we've had this conversation. It's not a used car talk of, hey, yeah, franchising for you, do this, do that. We just kind of have a chat, and if it makes sense to go forward and look at franchises and then explore that possibility with franchisors, absolutely, let's do that. So just the frandream.com. That's my website, or you can email me at james@thefrandream. And I would love to have a conversation with you and talk with you.
Awesome. Hey, thank you so much, James. I'm going to put you in the, I think it used to be periwinkle. It's kind of like a magenta colored room now. We're going to put you in the magenta colored room.
Perfect.
Thank you so much for spending a few moments with me today. Thank
you so much. I really had a great time. Thank you for having me.
Appreciate it. Listen, get a hold of James at thefrandream.com. That's FRAN dream.com. And if you're interested, give him a reach out and see what happens. It doesn't cost anything to talk to him, and he can line you up or shoot you straight or get you on your way to building wealth for yourself. I really appreciate his time and everybody else who's listened and watched. I have one small action, right? Just hit the follow button on your podcast player, Apple, Spotify. And if you listen to YouTube or watch it, I should say, hit the subscribe. Thank you so much. Get out there. Go unleash your entrepreneur. Stop making excuses. Cut ties to things holding you back and just move it forward.
Hey, before you go, hit that follow button on your favorite podcast player, Apple, Spotify. Crush that little follow button so you get the latest episodes as they come out. Thank you so much for listening to the Never Been Promoted podcast.